Parapegmata are essentially ancient celestial almanacs and were used most predominantly by sailors tracking favorable weather and farmers concerned with the annual planting and harvesting of crops. The Parapegma I chose to make is based off of a 4th century CE Roman copy found near the baths of Trajan in Rome. First, I needed to source the stone. While the ancient versions were frequently made of marble or another hard material, I chose to go with soapstone as it would be easier and faster to carve, especially since this was my first endeavor into stone carving. Randy Zebra at Neolithic Stone in East Van acted as the master to my apprenticeship and helpfully demonstrated how I might go about completing this project.
Maybe I would make a groove, and then once you have a groove, you can.
In order to create a flat surface to work on, I needed to grind down one side against another flat but rough surface. This back-breaking process took about 15 minutes of grinding the 34-pound stone against my back steps. It is no surprise that bioarchaeologists today are able to identify pathological wear and strain on the remains of humans who regularly ground grain in this way. Once I had my work surface, it was time to plan out the design. For a copyright-free image of the original Thermae Taiani Parapegma I have emulated, see page 231 of Darren Lehoux's 2004 article on observation and prediction in ancient astrology. Once my design was transferred to the stone, it was finally time to begin drilling some holes. For this, I was excited to use my great-grandfather's old-school hand drill. After immediately breaking one of my fiancé's modern drill bits, I thought it best to switch to an even simpler method. Here you can see the evolution of my small chisel's handle in order to create a more ergonomic grip. Boring into the stone like this was very tedious, and I eventually switched back to the hand drill, this time with the bit further sunk into the chuck to reduce lateral stress. In creating the central circle's lines, I found that pulling the chisel towards me allowed for more control. One thing I noticed as I continued to drill were the crescent moon impressions left by the chuck as it came into contact with the stone's face. In some copies of Parapegmata that track a lunar cycle, there are similar but likely deliberate markings beside each hole to help identify which phase the moon is currently in. In cases where this is less clearly an aesthetic choice, it is possible that these markings could indicate the type of tool or method used in antiquity. Specifically, rotary movement, like what I've done here, versus impact with a chisel or awl and hammer. I did not test this latter method. Now let's talk about what's on this thing. My inscriptions began with the numbers beside my vertical lines of holes. The numbers 1 to 15 run vertically down the left side, and 16 to 30 down the right. These were used to keep track of the days of the moon. The next clip shows me making my second mistake, when I distractedly began carving an X instead of a V at number 28. To fix this, I used a wood chisel to remove a small trench of material. This once again made me think of the master-apprentice relationship, and I wondered if Randy would have had a better solution to cover up my mistake. The days of the moon are an important astrological indicator of propitious times for certain kinds of activities, not least of which were agricultural tasks, as seen in Pliny and Virgil. Virgil, for example, tells us that the 17th day of the moon is propitious for planting vines, the 9th lucky for fugitives, but unlucky for thieves, and that the 5th day is unlucky for all work. Next, I focused on inscribing the personified weekdays. Across the top of the Parapegma, we see images of 5 of the 7 deities of the astrological week. Reading from left to right, we see a gap where Saturn should be, then Sol, Luna, Mars, Mercury, a blank for Jupiter, either deliberately effaced or simply lost through damage over time, and Venus, in their normal astrological order. In the middle of the Parapegma are the signs of the zodiac, with 2 holes drilled per sign. Reading counterclockwise from just to the right of the top, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. I found that the best way to sketch in these figures was to draw it in pencil first, which could be sanded off afterwards, and then do a lighter trace with the tool I was using, so that when you apply more pressure, it has a groove it wants to follow. Given that a small fragment of a bone peg was found in one of the holes for Gemini, I decided to use the tip of an elk antler for one of my pegs. There were 3 pegs in use on this kind of Parapegma, one to track the days of the week, one to track the motion of either the sun or the moon, it is unclear which, through the signs of the zodiac, and one to keep track of the days of the moon. For For the latter 2 cycles, I opted to work with a softer material by sawing off the ends of 2 of my paintbrushes, and then sanding off their plastic coating to maintain a natural aesthetic and more realistic recreation. Here you can see that each peg fits nicely into their corresponding hole size. Finally, it was time to put a finish on my piece. Randy had suggested a number of options, including beeswax, tung oil, or boiled linseed oil. While it is unclear whether these Parapegmata would have used any kind of finish, I wanted to show off the design by applying one that would enhance the contrast between the treated surface and inscribed areas. In the end, I went with the linseed oil. It seems that with all finishes, it was necessary to go over all the drawings and numbers again to create enough contrast for the details to be visible. At this stage, any accidental scratches that had not been sanded off were easily covered up by the finish. And there you have it. Here you can see that I have placed the pegs in their appropriate spots based on the date of my last day of filming. The bone peg is sitting beneath Saturn, now known in English as Saturday. The central circle shows that we are nearing the end of Taurus on the zodiac cycle, and the final peg in the bottom right indicates 4 days until the new moon. This tells me that it is a propitious day to spend time with your housemates and practice safe social distancing.